Hundreds of convicted sex offenders are living close to local schools, and there is little the police can do about it.
The I-Team discovered multiple loopholes in the Ohio law designed to keep sex offenders away from school kids. 9 News anchor Brendan Keefe is here now with tonight's I-Team investigation. Brendan?
Carol and Clyde, half of all sex offenders will attack another victim in the future, according to the Department of Justice. That's why it's against the law throughout the tri-state for a convicted sex offender to live within 1,000 feet of a school. Yet we had obtained an advance copy of this report, a study showing that 1 out of every 3 sex offenders in Hamilton County lives within a school zone. This is the view a convicted sexual predator can see out his bedroom window. Kids boarding buses at the Academy of World Languages, a Cincinnati public elementary school. The man lives in this house in O'Brienville, and his backyard connects directly to the schoolyard. This man is allowed to live here despite convictions for raping 2 girls because he committed those crimes 3 years before Ohio passed a law forcing sex offenders to live at least 1,000 feet away from school property. The Ohio Supreme Court ruled registered sex offenders with convictions for crimes committed before July 2003 can live wherever they want.
If you're a pedophile, it's something that you will continue to do or attempt to do.
State Senator Eric Kearney co-sponsored the 2007 law that added daycare centers and preschools to the list. The Senate Minority Leader was surprised when we told him we found sex offenders registered within 1,000 feet of many Cincinnati schools, including 17 near the new location of the School for Creative and Performing Arts, 10 of them classified Tier 3 or sexual predators, considered the most dangerous.
I'm very surprised by that. I did not know that. That causes me great concern, and I think it's something that we need to study further and address immediately.
Megan's Law went national more than 15 years ago, and now all 50 states require sex offenders to register in an online, searchable public database. That number is approaching 750,000 registered sex offenders. More than half the states also have residency restrictions designed to keep sex offenders from living within 1,000 feet of school playgrounds like this one. All 3 states in our area have the 1,000-foot rule, but the penalties vary widely. In Indiana, it's a felony, carrying up to 3 years in state prison. In the Commonwealth, it's a misdemeanor. A sex offender choosing to live within 1,000 feet of a school, park, or playground could spend a year in the county jail. But in Ohio, it's not a crime. It's a civil matter, which may explain why in Hamilton County, 1 out of every 3 sex offenders chooses to live in a school zone. What does that mean, that it's not a crime?
Well, it means that if the sheriff finds out about it, he cannot file charges against the sex offender.
Ohio Attorney General Mike DeWine says the sheriff or any other law enforcement officer in the state cannot arrest a sex offender found in a school zone, even if that sex offender is breaking the law. Is it something that should be a crime?
We have our criminal laws, and one of the reasons we have them is to deter people from doing something. And that sends a much stronger message. If the people of Ohio want to send a strong message to sex offenders, don't live within 1,000 feet of a school or a daycare center, then we probably ought to make it a crime.
They're more likely to be assaulted by a teacher in their school than they are a random sex offender who might live 500 feet away or 1,000 feet away or whatever.
Claremont County Sheriff A.J. Rodenberg says he doesn't want the authority to arrest sex offenders living close to schools. His jail is so full they've had to turn away some violent criminals, and he says the law does little to protect kids from sex offenders.
They're not allowed to have the residence within 1,000 feet, so if they're 1,010 feet away with the residence, that's fine. And you know, that 1,000-foot number is just a number.
And sex offenders are restricted only from living within 1,000 feet of schools. The law does not restrict where they can go.
No, they can go to school activities. They can walk down the street to the school. They can sit on a bench at the playground.
What the law, as is currently written, has to do with is where he sleeps at night, where he lives.
Since he took office, Attorney General DeWine has made improvements to the online sex offender database his office maintains. We used it to find 19 sex offenders living within 1,000 feet of this Cincinnati elementary school. They live in the same halfway house where a serial killer was expelled for being too violent a week before he murdered a 13-year-old SCPA student. Those 19 sex offenders are not breaking the law because the state legislature here in Columbus specifically exempted treatment centers and correctional facilities. So while an individual sex offender can't live within 1,000 feet of a school, a halfway house full of them is completely legal.
Well, you know, that doesn't make any sense. And I think the legislature probably needs to revisit that issue as well. The whole idea is to get the sex offenders away from schools. So if you start carving out exceptions to that, whether it is for, you know, treatment or whatever reason, it becomes Swiss cheese and it really doesn't, you know, got a bunch of holes in it.
Parents can't tell which sex offenders are exempt from the law and which ones are restricted from living in a school zone because the database doesn't display that information. So as a parent, I can't tell if that sex offender is allowed to be within my child's school zone or not.
We need to add that information, and that's something that we clearly should be doing and want to do.
The Attorney General is working on the database, and the highest-ranking Democrat in the Senate is promising to fix the law.
We need to make the law effective, and we need to make the law impactful to protect the children.
Last night, we showed you how prosecutors in Ohio send letters to sex offenders living in school zones, warning them to move. Those who refuse are eventually evicted by a judge. Prosecutors say it works quite well. But right now, there are warrants out for 17 sex offenders in Hamilton County who have failed to register their current addresses. Their last known address for 6 of them, well, it was within 1,000 feet of a school. Tonight, police are looking for these men, and they have no idea where they are. Carol?
Great job, Brendan. Thanks.